Now, guys, welcome to a really random Flipcast. This was supposed to happen technically for me tomorrow / later on this evening, and for you tomorrow, technically.
Yes.
But I've been wanting to get G on here for a super long time. She's one of my favorite manga tubers. Her and a couple of other people are the reason why I started collecting, honestly. You are in my eyes, you're famous for the super long hauls, like incredibly long hauls. Sometimes I try to support all my friends, and I always have to save your videos for like when I'm doing something super. Like, I'm gonna be like, so I like if I'm cleaning the kitchen at work, and I'll throw yours on. You're also the co-host of the Read Right to Left podcast, which just had how many episodes?
I believe the 6th one was the one we just posted. Yeah,
and which has been fantastic.
Thank you.
And so G, welcome. And the first question off the bat, which is the most basic question I ask everybody because everyone has a very different answer. I just had a Boogie Snacks on, and his answer to this question was very cool. Well, not cool. He was injured, but how did you get into manga and anime?
Oh, my answer to this is pretty dorky and lame. But in high school, I had a couple friends who were into anime, mainly anime, not really manga. And they I heard them talk about it, but I wasn't really into it per se. But then a lot of them went to Japan with the school.
Oh, wow.
So they did a language exchange. Because they were studying Japanese. I wasn't, because I was doing other languages. But whilst they were away, I had summer break, which is the end of the year here. So it was like the Christmas break, and no friends to do anything with. So I don't know exactly how it came about, but I saw somewhere that Death Note was recommended to somebody. And I was like, well, I recognize that name. So I decided to watch that via not exactly legal means. But
which I think all of us go through that phase.
Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of weird because you don't like Death Note now.
I do like it. I like it for what it is. I think in the vast works of most notably Sugumi Oba, like the writer's stuff, it's definitely my favorite. Because in that one, the protagonist is meant to be a bad guy, where he's meant to be someone who's like shitty to everyone he knows and really sexist and has a genius complex. Not so much in Bakuman. You're meant to like those guys, and not so much.
I absolutely hated Bakuman. I could not.
Yeah.
I sold that the moment I finished it. I was like, I'm done.
Yeah,
so you watched Death Note.
Yeah. And then I kind of fell into I enjoyed it so much because even prior to that, I really enjoyed like true crime and like murder mysteries and things like that. So Death Note was like the perfect starting point for me. And then from there, I got amassed a couple other titles, most notably like Full Metal Alchemist, the original 2003 series. I watched things like Hellgirl, Lovely Complex, just a whole bunch of stuff. And so that whole summer, I basically watched anime whilst my friends were gone, and it, converted me. And then it wasn't until a couple years later, after I graduated high school, after my first year of university, I took a year off, and I was kind of just in a personal slump. I didn't have much motivation to do anything. And that's when I kind of found manga as a next step from anime. So before that, I wasn't really interested in manga, especially for stuff that I'd already seen. Like I didn't want to reread stuff that I'd already knew. But I started picking up some titles that didn't have anime adaptations, and then I really enjoyed that, and then it just kind of spiraled into what it is now,
which is one of the most impressive collections in all of YouTube. Which is
thank you for that.
Amazing. So G, when did you start? When did you say I want to start a YouTube channel? Because when you started, this probably like there was no manga, like there's very few of you, like, and then like so what made you go, I'm gonna pick up a camera? Which, by the way, I was doing some research before we went live. Your like setup has been not the same, but like you've had the same idea,
consistent, pretty much.
It's so great too. It's so great.
Oh, thank you.
I actually, I think in one of my videos, I was like, I'm gonna try this out because G did it, and then it just didn't work for me because I was like, I don't have a pretty plant, I don't have like a cute figure. So for almost 5 years ago, when did you decide to say, you know what, I'm gonna start a YouTube channel?
Well, actually, I had the YouTube channel for a couple years before that, even before I made manga videos, like was even reading manga. Because back when I was, again, that same time of period when I was in my first year of university, that year off as well, there was a big push within the fan community, anime fan community, to support the industry. So it was literally called the support the anime industry or support the industry. You may still find videos on YouTube. I'm sure they're still there. And that was mainly created because the anime community at the time, the bubble had just burst. So a lot of companies were going bankrupt. A lot of business, anime just wasn't.
And all those guys.
Yeah, exactly. Bandai. People thought that this was the end. Tokyo Pop had kind of removed itself from the industry. So people were showing off, hauls of things that they bought in order to support the anime industry. And so I did one of those, hated it, posted it, hated it at 19 years old or however old I was at the time. And then I kind of just thought, well, I tried that, didn't really like it too much. And I wasn't very confident in how I filmed it and how I actually presented the things that I wanted to talk about. And then many, many years later, there's always been a manga community, but at the time, there wasn't a huge amount of manga creators. Most specifically that I remember, Code Provider, who I don't know if so he was one of the big ones, and Insidious Swede was kind of just starting, and Fatal Ferret and those guys. And there was a lot of people who did manga collection videos, but whenever I watched them, and I watched a lot of them, they were always things that I wasn't super duper interested in, or that I felt were very samey. Like you'd have people who just had all of One Piece, Berserk, and then Naruto, and all the big shonen stuff and all the big seinen titles, which I enjoy plenty of those. But when I looked at my own collection, I thought I can't be the only one who is reading or buying this title or that title. So I thought there's probably other people who want to see something that's more in line with their tastes. So I put out my video, and it did pretty well pretty immediately, which really surprised me. I thought I would be kind of like a small niche within the niche, because a lot of the titles I talk about weren't very popular then, still kind of aren't that popular now, most notably Not So Nice Book of Friends. Mushishi was a big one, A Bride Story, nobody was reading back then. And so I kind of grew into this community. And from there, it really kind of exploded, and it surprised me at how much people seem to enjoy the stuff that I was talking about. And then about a year after I started was when I really noticed that a lot of the time I would be buying things, and that I didn't necessarily. I just was buying them because I enjoyed them, but they were popular as well, and I didn't have much to say about them.
I fell in the same trap.
I think we all do. And so that was when it was the end of 2016. I actually made a video and said, I'm changing my channel name because prior to Simply G, I was Compulsive Collector, which I really didn't like the association. It's a very negative type of name. And I also just said I'm unhauling or getting rid of a bunch of stuff. I still enjoy it, but I really want to focus on the things that I love. And that's kind of where my focus has been since. So yeah, that's kind of how it goes now.
I just now got into that rhythm because I just finished my first year. I mean, I've had the channel since 2011, but like I didn't post anything. But I started making videos a year ago because my wife was like, I don't want to put words in her mouth, but I think she was getting sick of me just being like, babe, Guts is my favorite character, and her just being like, shut up already, Flippo. My God. So she was like, she's like, Flippo, you're really like, you have a good personality. You should make a channel. So looking back though, like my videos are so cringy. I was just me in front of my computer, just being like, oh hey, I like Gantz, pretty cool. But I fell into the trap of buying everything, like everything I could. I was just impulsively, I felt like I needed this huge collection because friends like Jen, Manga Hoarder, these people have these massive just libraries pretty much. And I was like, I want that because I had manga when I was younger, got out of it, and then came back into it as like a full grown adult. And so I started buying. I was buying Blue Exorcist, Kenshin, Soul Eater, series that I like and hate. And then I ended up with 2,500 volumes of manga, and was like, and I came to a point where I read it all, and I was like, I didn't enjoy half of this. So I started to de-haul stuff, and then now I'm focusing on my two true loves, which is mecha and tokusatsu. Which everyone makes fun of me now. I have a entire shelf.
No, it's wonderful to have the stuff that you really care about. I think. Yeah,
but people like Base Senpai. If you're watching Base, fuck you. I love you, but. So, G, we have some questions for you before we start rambling. So these podcasts, the FlipCast, they're somewhat structured. I just like to I think a good conversation just goes places, and so we'll talk over each other, we'll ramble, we'll get sidetracked on stuff. So, but Zach wants to know, one, are your bookshelves being organized by color? Is so satisfying.
Yeah, I do that for my novels back here because I really enjoy that aesthetic. This is my bedroom, by the way. You can't see where I sleep, but that's all. Those are all my novels, and I like that organization.
And two, are you safe? Which is also what I wanted to ask you too. Are you safe from the fires? Been watching that in the news.
Yeah, so fires, huge thing here right now. A lot of the major ones that you guys will be hearing about on the news are on the East Coast. So Sydney, Melbourne, like the places you actually probably have heard of. I live on the opposite side of the country. So I'm in West Australia, and we've had plenty of fires, don't get me wrong. And I live in a rural metro area. So I'm actually on property. I'm on 10 acres of bushland, pretty much.
Wow.
And we, like, I don't know if people noticed on my Twitter, but when I was doing my super duper long like collection video tours, I had to put out a tweet probably 5 or 6 videos in saying, hey guys, I don't want to alarm anyone, but this may be the last video because I'm having to evacuate, or we may have to evacuate because of fires. And so they didn't get close to, I mean, they got close to where we were, but luckily, I think we're in an area that's very bushfire aware. So we do a lot of prep for the summer seasons.
How do you guys prep for that, by the way?
We burn off. So during the winter months and like the cooler temperatures, volunteer firefighters will actually burn back, and then that will reduce the actual amount of fuel there, like the dead plants and leaves and everything. So if a fire does break out, it can actually direct them to areas that are unpopulated and also prevent it from getting super duper hot, because the biggest problem with Australia is that it's adapted for fires, and all of our plants are adapted for fire. So like gum trees, eucalyptus, things like that. When it gets hot, like they're full of oil. I'm sure you know, like eucalyptus oil, but that oil is so potent in there that once a tree catches fire, it will explode. And because of that, and they do that because it explodes because of the high oil concentration in the trunk of the tree. And that's because all of those plants have adapted to fire. So that's actually how they reseed. So that's how they make more trees. So yeah. It's
man, even your plant life is just, it's scary over there. Every time, like not to rag on your country, but every time someone posts something, I'm just like, holy shit! Like, how do you guys survive over there? But I am glad that you are safe. I have a friend named Sherlock who we're friends on Facebook. He lives over there too, and he posted some pictures, and like the sky is just like red. I was like, whoa.
In Sydney, in Canberra, which is the capital, like the like your Washington DC. It's Canberra. That currently, last week it was #1 worst in the world for air quality, just because of the smoke there. Like it's major, and the fires themselves are over a actual land mass the size of Belgium. Like it's major, and it's
still going.
Yeah, it's still going, and places in New South Wales have been burning since February of last year. So like this is not we have fires all of the time. Like all of the time, every summer there's fires, but the major fires have been burning since September. It's like nonstop since then, and it impacts lives, it impacts livelihoods, and it destroys homes, destroys families. Considering how long it's been burning, there's only been 8 casualties, which is kind of like amazing insofar as like it could be so much worse.
In the grand scheme of things, that number is very low.
Yes,
but it's still very sad though.
It is horrifically sad. And 10 years ago, we had a similar kind of thing happening it's happening in Victoria now, but Victoria, which is where Melbourne is, they had what was called like the Black Friday fires, and that burnt for probably a solid 2 or 3 weeks, and a lot of people lost a lot of their homes, their loved ones. It's just really, really bad. And the thing is with fire, especially if you're in an area where there's a lot of bushland around, which all of these places are, you can't outdrive it. You can't outrun it. You got to get in the car as soon as you think it might be getting to you and just go, because there's no way out of it. It's a really serious, dangerous thing. And so that's why for my family, like we made the choice that if ever a fire is coming, we evacuate. Like all of this shit is just stuff. Like the home's insured, everything's insured, it's fine. We have a takeaway box base, or like a carry away, which has, baby albums and, birth certificates and all the important stuff
that you can't buy again.
Exactly. Stuff that we need.
Which is exactly what we have too.
And then, we will go, but some people do decide to like stay and defend their home, which I think you have to have like you have to be very good at that and have a really solid plan, because again, fires are very unpredictable. They change direction due to the wind and all of these things. So yeah,
that's what Fire Force taught me, is that fire is very unpredictable. So I mean, let's say a fire did come, what would be the one series that you would grab? Like the series that like means the most to you, that you were just like, oh fuck, I gotta take that with me.
Manga wise, I would probably take. Probably because I can't get it in print readily, I'd probably take Mushishi.
Okay.
Because like a lot of the titles that I have, they're in print. I can buy them again. It's not a huge deal. And yeah, aside from that, maybe Wandering Sun, because that's very hard to find.
That's a very out-of-print series too.
Yeah, yes, exactly. So really, out of everything, probably those two. But I honestly, I wouldn't even necessarily think about it. I'd just be like, no, go, run.
I joke, and I mean, knock on wood, hopefully this never happens. My room is on the second story, so I always tell my wife, I'm like, I'm gonna make sure you and the kid get out, but then I'm coming back for like Gantz. I'm gonna come back for like just, just stuff like that. But in all seriousness, though, I have there's an app where I have cataloged everything I own, which is for like insurance purposes. So yeah, every anime, every manga, every movie, just like book, like novels that I have it categorized. So in case, God forbid, anything ever happens to our home, insurance. Yeah. Guys, life pro tip. Insurance. It is incredible. Sometimes I pray. I'm like, man, I really hope something happens to the house, because it's like, like get that $60K insurance check. That'd be amazing, you know?
Honestly, my dad kind of does the same thing because the family business is on the property, and he's like, "Yeah, we're insured for like $2 million. I wish it would go up." I'm like, "God, no!"
I say the same thing about. I also work with my parents at their family business. Well,
I've heard you mention before.
Yeah, we own a restaurant. My grandparents are. I just told this on Boogie's podcast, so these people are probably annoyed with this. But my grandparents were immigrants from Sicily. They came here. They kept getting kicked out because they kept getting here illegally. And they asked somebody like, "Hey, how can we stay permanently?" And they're like, "Have a kid." So they had my mom. We call her the anchor baby. And so then they opened up a restaurant because my grandfather didn't have an education past the 3rd grade.
Yeah.
Because his dad died young. He had to be, back in those days, 1931, he had to be the man of the household, and he had to get a job super young. So they came over here, started a restaurant. It's been open for over 50 years. Theirs, and then ours is going to be open for 30. I was almost 30 years, and then I'm taking it over. So, but yeah,
it's incredible. Real family legacy.
Yeah, and then I'm named after my grandfather. So I'm the only. There's 5 of us. There was 5 of us total. My grandfather just passed, and then I'm the only one named after him because in our culture you name your firstborn son and daughter after your mom and dad. So I'm the only. I'm the only one named after him that's I'm working at the restaurant. Like my cousins have gotten other jobs. But yeah, I absolutely wish sometimes I'm like, because all the stuff is gas powered. I'm like, it just be one day, just boom, just one day, and then just
make sure everyone's out of there.
Yeah.
Midnight, don't worry about it.
So Guy, sorry, I don't know why I called you Guy. I gotta say,
I know some people get confused, but it's G.
It's G.
Yes.
A series that I like that I found because of you is Black Butler.
Oh, yeah.
I think I saw an art book video of yours, I want to say like maybe 2 years ago, maybe
a long time
ago. And I was like, I love that artwork. So I watched the first season, enjoyed it, and then at one point I was up to date with the manga before I sold it. I just feel like they're just stretching that out just a little tiny bit.
Yeah, the current where it is now, it's definitely like at the end of it. I don't know if they could do much more after what's happening now. And Black Butler, like, it's definitely a hit or miss series. Even for me, like, I really love parts of it. Other parts, I'm like, yeah, that's kind of just the expectation of the audience and the genre.
I just love the art and I love the characters. Like, I love how everything looks like that very gothic, the
Victorian style.
Yeah, I love that. I wish people still dressed like that because I would totally rock that. I was very goth in junior high, like painted my nails black, wore all black, and that wasn't cool. Now it's cool. So I did.
Now you can be trendy.
Yeah, now I could be like the coolest dude ever. I mean, I do have eyebrow slits, so I'm a little bit of a.
You do the thing my sister does. She cuts the eyebrow. Slits her eyebrow.
I don't know why I started doing that. I was at the barber shop one day and the guy who cuts my hair was like, "Hey, do you want to do eyebrow slits?" And I was like, "Yeah, man, let's fucking do it." But
why not?
I did get my gangster tested. I was at the gym late at night, and a very scary man approached me and was like, because I guess it's a gang affiliation thing. And I was like, "Bro, I'm just trying to be like Vanilla Ice. I'm not trying."
I'm fine. Don't worry about me.
I am the most. And then I also got jumped at that same gym, so not a good time. But do your real life friends know about your manga collection?
Yes, absolutely.
Do they make fun of you?
No, not really. A lot of my friends are still like the high school friends that I had that introduced me to not to anime, not manga. And some of the like my uni friends and stuff, they're also into it. So, and it's kind of strange because I didn't like go out looking for anime or manga friends in my life. It just so happened that it's what happened. Like, I just made them. And this year, or well, actually last year now, but that was the first time that I kind of publicly admitted to my friends that I had a YouTube channel, and they're very like cool about it, considering. I'm like, oh, thank you. So I have like a couple of my real life friends who follow my Instagram, who follow my YouTube channel and stuff, which and they're not really into manga or anything, but they just do it for, I don't know, for interest.
Just to show some love to a friend.
I guess so. And it's really wonderful of them.
The amount of people that know about this, that know me in real life, is very, very small. Like, because I mean, I don't know how to like. All my real life friends are like into sports, you know, they're into like very. I don't like golfing. I think golfing is absolutely boring. But to them, watching Super Sentai would probably be an absolute bore fest too. So, but all my real life friends are just into like. Also, most of them aren't married, so they're still going through that like let's go party phase. That's I mean, I've never been a partier, so that's never been who I've been. But I'm very much like I come home. I spend time with my wife and kid. I'll watch anime. But I when I first met my wife, I didn't tell her about any of this. I was like, and then when we got serious, I was like, oh, by the way, I'm a huge nerd. And she was like, because she worked at the gym that I met her at. And she goes, I knew you liked anime because I would watch it while I was doing cardio. And she'd be like, I would see you watch it all the time. And this is true. I had a friend who likes very fan servicey stuff, and he talked me into watching Kaijo, and so I'm watching Kaijo doing cardio, and I saw my wife, my now wife, for the very first time, and I was like, that girl's beautiful, but what the? I was like, no. I was like, oh god. I was like, no, this is not what I usually like. No. But so my wife's from a very small town, like. I think her graduating class is like 20-something people, just super small. Wow. Yeah. So she's very sheltered, and she thought anime was all hentai. Like that's what her mind was. But she likes Little Witch Academia a lot. No, not Little Witch. Little Witch Academia. I don't know why I get that name in My Hero Academia always tongue tied in my brain.
It's similar. It's not too far off.
And then she also likes like Your Name, you know, Ghibli movies. I think her first movie we saw together, or her first anime movie we saw together, she was 5 months pregnant, and we saw Kiki's.
Cute.
And she was like, I love this. This is incredible. Like, but she hates what I really like. She hates mecha. She hates tokusatsu. Like, she's like, I think one of the only tweets she's tweeted out is, I love my husband, but if he watches Just Being one more time, I'm gonna pack my bag. There was like a weekend where I just watched it like 4 times in a row. So, so Guy, you're also really into light novels, which a lot of people might not know.
Yeah.
And you actually write on a website about light novels. So how did you get involved with that?
So I was always interested in light novels. I actually was reading quite a few before it kind of became this big boom, and like all of the publishers were licensing it. Prior to that, there was a lot of attempts by like Tokyo Pop and Seven Seas.
Did they put out light novels, Tokyo Pop?
Yeah. They put out like the first 5 volumes of Full Metal Panic. They put out the first 4 volumes of the 12 Kingdoms, and like Shana, and well, I don't know if Shana was them, but like the couple of volumes of Shana, Shakugan no Shana. So there was attempts, but nothing really took off. And it wasn't until Yen Press really decided, like, okay, we're going to try and do this. And they were very smart, because one of their first licenses was Spice and Wolf, which is like a hugely popular, beloved kind of classic light novel.
What is Spice and Wolf?
So Spice and Wolf is a historical series, drama series, kind of, with a supernatural twist. It's about a traveling merchant called Lawrence, who goes around to different towns in sort of medieval Germany / England. And one day, while he's at a small town, this mysterious girl shows up in the back of his wagon, and she's completely nude. She's got like wolf ears and a tail, and she's a harvest god for that area. And she asks him if he could take her back to her homeland because she's not actually from that area. And so she's, you know, hundreds of years old or whatever, so she's kind of a deity.
Of course she is.
As you are. With a, you know, teenage girl body.
Every wolf girl I know is just like that. Life says it's just merchant gets together with wolf girl.
Basically. So a lot of the story is them traveling to different towns, and then there'll be an issue mainly focused on like economy and business and like actually being a merchant and making trade deals and things like that. And it'll be a match of Lawrence's background as a traveling merchant and all of his experience, and then Holo, she is very good, like she can perceive what's a truth and what's a lie, and also by being several hundred years old, she also has different experience and that sort of thing. So they work together as a team to, you know, do all various sorts of things. There's
Is it good?
It is really good. I think if you like banter between two characters, they have a really good chemistry in how they talk to each other, and there's kind of a sardonic quality to them. And it is a longer series. The original series ended at 17 volumes, and then for the 10th anniversary, not the manga, but the author, he decided to kind of continue it. So it's currently on 21 volumes. So there's been 3-4 extra volumes. Plus there's a spin-off called Wolf and Parchment, which is set like 10-15 years after the original series, with other characters who are one who's in the original series as a much younger person, and then another character who's like new to the series. So yeah.
Is she sexualized at all?
Holo, the wolf,
the furry lolly thing, yeah.
It's a romance story, so it's not really overtly sexual. There's nothing ever any like. I wouldn't say she's sexualized in the sense that there's a lot of like Lawrence just going like, "Oh my god, look at her tits, look at her nudity." It's never that. It's never like there's never any sort of real eroticism to it.
So it doesn't go like full bunny drop. Like
no, not at all, not at all. And like it's very different from that type of series. One, she is like, she doesn't look like a little girl. She's not like, you know. I know you were talking about Loli before in the.
I absolutely cannot.
It's terrible, and I mean, I think most people know my stance on the sexualization of minors.
It's like it's like always bothered me, but then since becoming a father to a daughter, it's bothered me even more, to the point where like I have sold, like I had Vampire Bund in my collection, that's gone. I even had problems with Puck at first, you know. I was like, because it's like that character's it's a very lolly character.
Yeah.
I don't like I don't like sexualization or sexual stuff in my entertainment in general. But one of my favorite series is Gantz, and I had a very hard time reading. The first couple volumes are like super rough with that stuff, and then I think progressively it gets better as the series goes on. Thank God, because there was a time where I was like, I'm not reading this anymore, and then I stuck with it, and I was like, okay, good, this is actually But
I think one of the differences between like, I don't know, like a Dance in the Vampire Bund, which is also like that kind of dynamic where you have 100 or a couple centuries old, you know, young woman, and then a guy and the difference between that and then the difference between Spice and Wolf, like they're on completely opposite ends of the spectrum. There's really no sexualization of Holo aside from like, yeah, she's in the nude. In like, if you read the manga, she's naked more of the time. But you reading like novels, you don't see any of that, and it's never like she's always wearing clothes. Like she doesn't walk around just not wearing clothes, because one of the major issues is that at that period of time, it was the spread of Catholicism or the church within Europe. And so a lot of these pagan harvest gods and like paganism was being crushed out of society. And being a literal pagan like harvest god, she has to hide who she is, or else she'll be, captured as a witch or a demon or whatever. So she's not like flaunting her ears and her tail around. It's very much them trying to. It is more so the actual discussion, like their personalities and how a romance grows from these two individuals and how they interact, rather than just be like, "Dang, she hot, I'm gonna wife her."
What's funny is that you're very proper. You're like you're a very mature person. So hearing you say, like earlier, you said, "Dang, her tits," and then hearing you say that is probably the funniest thing I've heard all day. You should start a side podcast.
I am too impressed.
So G, what's a guilty pleasure manga for you? Like, what's something that you've read and you're like, I shouldn't like this?
I don't know. Anime is easy answer for me, which is Utapri. That, oh my god, that show's so bad, but it's so entertaining. Oh my god. But manga wise, I would probably say, I don't know. I have to think about it, because there's a lot of stuff that I'm not really ever ashamed of reading a lot of the stuff that I do, and I don't feel bad about reading the stuff that I do. And I don't know. Also, I think a lot of people have this perception that I've read a lot of manga, which I have. Like, I'm not going to say that. Oh, actually, I do know. Oh, okay. It just came to me. Biggest guilty pleasure, and it's not good, and for the genre, like, it's so tropey, is World's Greatest First Love, which is a BL, boys love, from the creator of Junjo Romantica. I don't know either of those. Okay, Junjo Romantica was like the thing in like 2003, 2004. A lot of like the yaoi fangirls or whatever, that was the hot shit. Like, everybody loved that. First of all, I wasn't a fan back then, but by the time I got to it, I was like, this is terrible. I hate it. It has so many tropes that I dislike. It's just so bad. And World's Greatest First Love it's her newer series. Like, it came out after Junjo Romantica. Both of them are still ongoing, just by the way. But that one has less issues insofar as my biggest issues, aside from just like the typical consent issues of that era of BL, were the age gaps. Like, okay, because the main characters, there's the main character, he's 18, and then his boyfriend or partner or whatever is 28. So there's 10 years difference there. And also, the older guy was in love with this other guy's older brother, which is like how they knew. And then when the older brother got married, then he's like, no, heartbroken. And then like they were dead. I don't know. It's a bullshit. All this crap. And I just hate their dynamic. I just hate everything about it. Then also, there's like because all of her series, they have 3 couples. So there's like the main couple, and then there's like 2 side couples or whatever. One of the side couples, fine. Like, I don't have an issue with it. It's like a, medical student, like 22-year-old or whatever, and a professor, not his professor, but like a guy who works at the school. And I'm like, okay, like they're like 7 or however years old difference. And that's like, I'm not into, like, it's not my favorite, but out of all of the things, they're probably the best. But the big issue is there's one couple called Junjo Terrorist, and it's the guy, he's another professor, because all of these couples are like interlinked. They all exist within the same community. There's a professor who's 34. He's just broken up with his wife or something, and then the wife's younger brother is like, I've been in love with you this whole time, blah blah blah, I'm gonna force my way into your life, pretty much. The thing is, This younger brother is 17 years old. No, thank you. Oh my God, no, thank you.
What is the legal age over there?
I mean, it depends on prefecture. It can
How it is here too.
Yeah, and it's like 17, 18. So, but the age of adulthood is 20. So, like,
boy love manga. I think the most. I try to be as PC as possible. The most boy love stuff I've ever consumed was probably Yuri on Ice. I just don't like. Not that I don't like romance. I just don't watch a lot of romance. My guilty pleasure anime is Darling in the Franxx. My wife watching it with me would just like, I'd be sitting there and I'd be like looking at 02 and I'd just like start smiling and she'd look over at me like, really? Really? And then like all the undertones in that show about how like women's worth is based on having a child and all that stuff.
Can you hear Prime Minister Abe going, have children, all of you nerds have children. We have an aging population. We need more young people.
Do you guys actually have an aging population?
I mean, we do, but I'm talking about Japan. Prime Minister Abe is like, please give us children. All of you nerds who aren't married.
I joke. It's gonna sound terrible. I make somewhat sexist jokes to my wife's face, and she'll hit me and she'll laugh. And I think I did it the first time I ever talked to Shay over at Shay Geeks Out. She was like, "Are you fucking serious?" And I was like, "No. I don't actually mean that." Earlier we were on stream and I jokingly was like, "Hey babe," because she like opened the door. I was like, "Go make me a sandwich," and she was just like, "No, you piece of shit. I'm not gonna go do that." Which I joke, but I treat my wife like an absolute queen.
As you should.
As I should, because she is my queen at least. She's the she takes care of me. She writes me love notes all the time. Like I literally have notes all over the place. Like I have one. I had a week where just mentally I was like not feeling it, and she wrote like, "You are perfect. You're worth a lot." And then for our 2-year wedding anniversary, she wrote the year, the months, the weeks, the hours, the minutes, the seconds since we've been married. And then I still have this too. I have for Christmas my daughter and her. My like wife cut the tree out, and my daughter put the little fuzzy balls down. And it says,
"How old's your daughter now?"
She'll be 2 next month. So
nice.
She is all day. All she wanted to do was just cuddle. Like we went out to eat, and I posted that picture on Twitter. She literally wanted me to hold her like a actual baby, and she was just like smiling, just so happy. But
is she an Aquarius or a Pisces?
February. So February 24th. Me and my wife are Aquarius. Actually, our birthdays are a day apart. She's the 28th.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so our birthdays are a day apart. And then our daughter was born the 24th, and we were married on the 24th. So 24 is like our number.
Seems so.
Yeah. So I mean, I absolutely adore my wife. So she's over here. Childcare is like expensive, like really expensive.
Yeah.
So my wife was like, "Hey, like after we had the baby, she was working at the pizza place with me. She goes, would you be upset if I was a stay-at-home mom?" And because she wants to be like, she like wants to homeschool her daughter. She's very hands-on. I was like, yeah, that's absolutely fine. So she does an amazing job. Her daughter is above average on everything. Like she's excelling in a lot of areas. It's really cute. If you ask her like what like a dog does, she'll go woof woof. But if you ask her what an elephant does, she'll put her hand like this. It's really cute. Being a dad completely changed me. I was not expecting. We were not expecting. We were only married 2 months, which we ran away and got married because we didn't want to have a huge gaudy wedding. We wanted to, we got married outside at Percy Warner Park in Nashville. It was a beautiful day out. I remember. I mean, like I saw the dress before because we eloped, but when we went to our Airbnb. And I saw her in the dress for the first time, I like started sobbing uncontrollably. Yeah, I mean, this is a crazy story, but like we got together. I knew her for months, and I was in a very toxic relationship for 10 years. And
yeah,
I broke up, and then I waited, like 4 or 6 months before I wanted to date out of just, kindness. And then I met my wife. We started dating. 9 days later, we were engaged. 4 months later, we were married.
Well, I mean, if you know, you know.
Yeah, people sometimes go, "What the fuck? Like, are you serious?"
My dad kind of was in a similar thing where he was in a very toxic relationship for 10 years, ended that, and he basically like gave her, like, left everything with her. They had a business together, they had everything he left with her. And he was like, at the time, he owned properties, he had a lot of money, and he moved to Sydney, and he started a fashion label there because at the time he was in fashion. And
that's cool.
So yeah, so that's actually how my parents met. Was he went to New York for a fashion show to kind of show off the line, and for buyers, stores to come in and say like, yes, we want that, and we're ordering this and that and whatever else. And my mom was in the same like row in the exhibition hall, so they were kind of like all in a big group. And then at the end of this fashion show, they all went out for Chinese, just to celebrate like a successful, end of the expo. And they were sitting next to each other. And Dad's like, I knew that she was the one for me because she drank beer straight from the bottle, not like any of these Australian women. And so they were, Dad was living in Australia. Mom is from California, and she was living there. So they were long distance for quite a while. But Dad proposed after 3 months, and Mom was like, I've only known you 3 months. I'm not getting married to you right
now. She told him no?
She said no. And so he's like, I will never ask again. But they stayed dating or whatever. And then after a year of long distance, he moved to the US. And then at about 4 or 5 years of dating, Mom's like, you better ask me to marry you or else you're going to be marrying someone else. So here's a deadline, sir. And so he's like, okay, I mean, first time didn't work, so let's do it.
That's got to be so embarrassing.
I don't know so much that it's, I mean, it hurt his pride, and my dad at that age was a very prideful man. Not so much anymore.
I think all men go through that prideful phase. I was definitely, I used to be 340 pounds, and I lost a bunch. Like, that's how I met my wife at the gym. Thank you. I've gained 25 in baby weight because my wife.
That's okay.
It's all right, but some of my best, honestly, the weight's worth it because some of my best memories are being woken up at 3 a.m. from my wife and being like, hey, will you take me to McDonald's, Steak and Shake, and just cruising around the countryside, her playing music and just like holding hands and just like windows down, not a care in the world. You know what I mean? She's just, my wife is something else. It's
very obvious you love her. I'm
still very much head over. I still have a crush on her. Like, I like look at her sometimes and I'm just like you're so beautiful. I just want to
now to keep it up for the rest of your life.
Now make me sandwiches and do my laundry. I mean, probably the most ridiculous thing I can say is I still have not done a load of laundry in my entire life. Which is because listen. So, in my family's culture, the men are always the breadwinners.
I know Italians. I'm aware.
Well, to be fair, we are Sicilians. We're not. It's very different. You're doing the hand thing. No. So my mom was like, "It's my washer and dryer. I don't want you fucking up my washer and dryer in my laundry." So, so
all of these children and none of them help me. Mom, do you want help? No.
Only one child. So yeah. I was made to work at the restaurant. I think in 4th grade, I got a call from my mom being like, "Hey, do you think it's fair that me and your dad are busting our asses?" And I was like, I'm watching Power Rangers. Like, leave him alone. What's going on? And so they started, I started working full time, like 40-hour weeks at the age of however you are. I remember fourth grade specifically because that's when the towers fell, and that's what grade I was in. It was like shortly after. So, but yeah, I love working. I love being around people, interacting with people. For the most part, our town is very, it's very snobby. It's like a lot of rich people here, and they're very, they're not very nice rich people. They're very, very like pinkies up, And since we're in the food industry, they think we're peasants, so they talk down to us all the time. I'm just like, roll my eyes. What?
All that crap.
All that crap.
Yeah. I mean, because currently, my family, my parents are not in fashion anymore. They've been, but they've always owned their own business. They've both always been like entrepreneurs because back then, similar, not exactly the same, but my dad left school at 15. Like he never graduated. Wow. My mom did graduate, but she has she went to Fashion Institute, so she was a pattern maker. So she like knew how to make clothes and all of that.
That's awesome.
But since moving to Australia, they didn't really have the foundation to make clothes anymore. And at that point, it was the mid-90s. Everything, like all manufacturing was going to China and Bangladesh and all of these things. So fashion wasn't really something they wanted to do. Plus, fashion is like a very demanding industry. And at that point, I had been born. So they knew that they wanted like more time to spend with me and all of that. So Dad, when we were in Sydney, he was working as an interior designer. He used to like make up all of the interiors for hotels and student housing and things like that in Sydney for some of the large universities there. And my mom was a stay-at-home mom, but she also would do like some of kind of furniture design. So she'd choose like fabrics and stuff to use on couches and things. And then after a while, we moved to where we live now, which is as I said, like the opposite side of the country, which is where my dad's hometown is. Like we live where my dad was born and raised. So
you somehow always end up back where you were born. Always.
Definitely. And so when they moved here, they decided they needed something else. They tried to work with what they had, but Dad was really upset because he was working an office job and he wanted to be home with me. And my sister had been born at that point. So my sister like didn't recognize who he was because he just wasn't at home. He was at the office all day. So like that really hurt him. And so he's like, no, I want to be with the family. So they together, like when they were in the US, they had a fashion label, but here they started a skincare company. So like a natural skincare company. And that's what we've been doing for the last 20 odd years. And so I've been doing sales for that since forever. But so we sell at like farmers markets and like expos and things like that. So I've always been around it, but then I became like an actual sales rep or doing shows by myself by the age of 17. And I've been doing that the last 10 years.
So is that what you want to do? Is take over the family business?
No, I think it's a good like fallback for me, and it's something that I would hope that would continue. But I don't think it would be necessarily like my or my sister's full-time job because I just hallelujah, I just graduated university last.
Congratulations!
Thank you. I have my graduation ceremony in February, so that's really exciting.
That's badass.
And my I previously I studied for quite a few years with a Bachelor of Science. So I was doing Earth Science, most notably geology, because there's a large mining industry here. And some of my extended family are within the mining industry. So it was kind of like a good choice for me. But then I switched my focus and I just currently finished a double degree. So it's business. So a Bachelor of Commerce, which is the accounting. And then I also have, which is my real focus and where I really want to go into work, is writing. So I have a professional writing and editing degree, which is a Bachelor of Arts. And that's writing it's not really like creative writing. It's not writing novels or anything. It's writing like media releases and newsletter. Like annual reports, things for business that you use within a business all the time. And as well as you can go into like actual publishing and stuff, but that's not really where my personal focus is. I don't want to be in like a HarperCollins or one of the big publishing houses. I'd much prefer to be in, because I had an internship at a PR company, and that was really wonderful. I was with investor relations, and that was just working with how they wanted their information, their news, their data to be presented to shareholders, to stakeholders, things like that. And that was really, really great. So yeah, that's really
what's your dreams in the next 5 years, 10 years?
Hopefully I will have a stable job. Generally, I would actually really enjoy being in a PR company. I think their communications level is sort of where I like to be. I'm also currently, right now, I've had a couple job offers from like banks and things like that, which is really cool. Mainly because with the finance, like I understand what's going on and what they want me to tell people who don't know what's going on is. But generally, I just like to be stable. Like my dreams aren't that high. I just want to be a functional adult to some capacity,
which is really hard.
Mm-hmm.
It's being an adult actually sucks. But like for me, I never want, like, kind of like you, I was like, I'll use the family business as a fallback. I hated it because I was forced to work, and then the whole Italian guilt thing. I'd be like, hey mom, I got a internship at this game company, and they'd be like, no, you don't. You gotta work. And I was like, okay. So I went to college for first it was programming, and it was like not made up for this. Zach, by the way, Zach Uchu Shelf, I don't know how the fuck you do it, dude, because that was mind numbing to me. I was just like, ugh. So I, like you, I went in for writing because I was on the school newspaper team. I did the video game reviews sections. I've written for websites for the last 10 years. I've written for gaming websites, music websites. Actually, there's a podcast. I used to do a podcast 10 plus years ago with someone. Yeah. Jonah Falcon, this is a little too much information, but he has the world's largest penis. And me and him, I used to write for his website, and we used to do a podcast. So if you want to listen to junior year Flippo or Flipotaku gushing about Halo Reach, there's an episode called Flippo is a Hick out there somewhere, because they were making fun of me for living in Illinois, which is pretty much like the South. So I was in college, and then my best friend passed away in the same year. My cousin passed away in the same year, and then my dad had really bad health problems. So I was like, I'm gonna take a year off, focus on family, help everyone out. And then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna make more money doing this than I'll ever make anywhere else. It's already established. My parents have built this. I've been part of this, since I was born. I might as well. And also, like, the whole legacy thing too. I think it's cool that, like, I'm carrying on this legacy, because if I make it to 73, I'll see the first Flippos turn 100 years old, which is mind blowing.
Yeah, that's incredible.
So I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I dropped out of school, and now do this YouTube thing for fun in my spare time. And Zach and I actually are launching a website sometime this year.
Wow. Okay.
Which
That's
is good.
Really cool.
Yeah, we're going to be doing like writing, like long form articles about classic stuff. Which part of it was inspired by, I saw that, you were, doing articles, and I was like, I want to do that shit for old Toku shows, old mecha shows. I actually am writing a book that, which got scrapped because it got scrapped at one point because my hard drive crashed, and I was like, I'm not going to restart it because I was like 20 pages in that I felt good about. But yeah, I love writing. I think it's a lot of fun.
It's an incredible skill, and I think not a lot of people realize like how hard it can be to string words together
and make it not sound robotic.
Yeah, it's really a fine art that a lot of people don't necessarily appreciate nearly as much as they could. But yeah, a novel is really like that's a great project, and I think let me read it once again.
Well, it's not a novel. Everyone's gonna roll their eyes, but it's the history of mecha anime.
That's really cool.
And I've been doing tons of research. It's taken up way too much of my time because I don't think, honestly, my goal is to have it finished, even if it doesn't get into anyone else's hands. As long as I have it done, that's my goal.
No, it's a major achievement just finishing a novel. Because do you know how many people are like, yeah, I'm writing a book, and they just never put words on paper, and you're like, yeah, you can say you're writing a book, but you're not actually writing anything full stop. So just having it there is.
The only script I finished was for drama class. I wrote a screenplay. It was like our whole class had to write on their own. Everyone had to write their own play, and the top 3 got picked and was actually performed by the high school.
Oh wow! Yeah.
And mine won, and it was about a death metal band who gets hired to play a 5 to 8-year-old girl's birthday party, and they really need the cash, so they try to dumb down their live show for a child, and it ends up being worse and more offensive than it was previously. So that was a lot of fun, and that's what kind of like boosted me to like start doing stuff. And I would do like comedy sketches with friends at high school, but then when you become an adult, no one wants to do that shit anymore. It kind of sucks.
Especially because you get busy with work, with family, with all the other responsibilities that you kind of forget that kind of fun or just more. And I find it's really important to have a hobby that isn't like related to online stuff necessarily.
Yeah.
And you're not monetizing necessarily either, because that's like those two things really push you into always feeling like you have to create to hit someone else's expectations. But when you're making it for yourself, that's when you're really making something of value, and people who will appreciate it will find you, rather than having to push it and be like, read my book and support me.
Buy my book, guys. You said you're my friends. Buy it. So back to manga. What's your top 5 favorite manga of the year?
Of the year?
Of 2019.
Okay, so I just did the podcast. I would say probably Our Dreams at Dusk started and finished in 2019. That is a phenomenal series, and I think everyone should read it, even if it's not within your typical like wheelhouse of the stuff you like. I think it's just a really genuine, empathetic character story, and I think that Yuki Kamitani, a lot of their own personal experiences in life has gone into that, and that's what I think it's a very personal project for them, and I think that's why it has value. The Po Clan came out last year, which is 70s shoujo, one of the major Moto Hagio.
I bought that. I still haven't read it yet.
Try it. Like it's one of those series that I think you can take chapter at a time, because it doesn't have necessarily a huge overarching plot. You're not going to forget things if you take your time with it, and it's not one that I would recommend like binging through.
I did actively try to get into shoujo this year. I got Rose King, which I think is phenomenal.
Yeah, that's a fantastic series.
It's amazing. Thanks to you and Shay, Yono of the Dawn, Otherworld Barbara, and then the Po Clan, which I haven't even touched. But it's a big book.
Yeah, it's thick. It's because
with 2 C's.
Because Po Clan is 5 volumes, I believe, and so they're condensing it into 2.5s or whatever that they're doing. So it's a lot of content. It's a lot of content there. But what else came out this year? Particular to my tastes and to my kind of reading and the genres I enjoy, I really am into Phantom Tales of the Night, which gets my supernatural yokai.
I actually gave that away because I didn't like it, but the art is beautiful though. It's insanely beautiful.
That kind of moody, morally gray type of yokai story is my jam. Like, I adore that stuff. So that was a real hit for me. What else came out last year?
Dorohedoro finished, and I think that's my favorite.
That was a wonderful ending to a series.
Yeah.
I adore that. Like, I just love how well Q Hayashida was able to mix sort of the fun domestic side of it and just like the brutality of the violence.
So,
And
not to say spoilers for that series, because I still want people to read it. The people that they set up being the bad guys at first are my favorite characters in that. I like I or N or I, however you pronounce his name. Fucking phenomenal bad guy at the start, and then like he becomes so like I love him by the end, and that I was really hoping that Cayman would hook up, but they didn't, and I actually liked that better. I was like, they remained friends. It didn't try to force anything out of those two, which I think was great. I really hope her new project Die Dark gets published, because it's that not to promote piracy, but I have read Die Dark, and so far it's fantastic.
I haven't looked at it because I don't read scan. I just don't have time for that. I mean, I like to support legally, but I just don't have time for it.
Me too.
But I mean, Dorohedoro is such an anomaly because so many of the parts shouldn't work, but together they do. And I think the found family element of kind of the bad guys of that series really pushes it forward. You are actively invested in both sides of the story, and you realize that like neither of these sides are necessarily bad. They're just trying to do what they do. Like they're not. There's nothing purely evil about, especially like a lot of the sorcerer characters. They're just people.
That's the other thing is that like it's like that world felt so fleshed out. Like there were so many rules and like regulations to like the magic and the masks and like the devils and like so many like layers, and they just kept adding onto it, and it felt so lived in and felt so natural. And then there's that turn, like you think the ending's coming, and it's just like you got 5 more volumes, and it's just an escalation straight up, and it's just, oh my god, it's so good. I do want to talk to you about something that someone brought up, Attack on Titan, because we're on 2 separate sides of this. I saw your thread. You dislike it.
Yeah, I find that knowing the creator's politics, it's hard to.
What are his politics? Because I keep hearing this.
He is very conservative and
Is
very, very. He's tweeted things about. So he's tweeted some very not nice things about Korea, things like that. It's just and knowing that, it's hard for me to ignore the very overt fascism and like Nazism within the series, just through the military structure and how. Because I am reading, like I still read it. I read it through the Crunchyroll app because I'm not giving my money to that series.
I bought every. It's like see, like we're completely opposite on this.
And I like currently, and not to spoil anyone, but there's like actual discussion and promotion of eugenics in the manga, and there's like it for me, like knowing how volatile the conservative side of Japan is, I don't feel comfortable thinking that a lot of people are like, yeah, it's just harmless, like, it's just a fun kind of fantasy military series. Because I just really don't like militarization and the positive portrayal of militarization in a lot of anime and manga. Like, I don't really like Tanya the Saga of Evil. I don't really like Gate. A lot of these series that are like, yes, our armies are wonderful, the military is wonderful, and Japan should totally have,
So how far are you in it? Because I feel like it kind of goes against that at one point with Aaron's progression. No,
I do agree, but I think, and I've read that part. I'm probably 2 or 3 chapters behind at this point. And I think that, like, yes, the hero does deny that, but on the same token, there's still like an element of acceptance of like, yeah, no, your eugenics is bad, but my eugenics is kind of, it's different, but like still there. And I'm like, how about we don't, you know, just make eugenics an acceptable thing. It's the same issue I have with like in light novels currently. So many series are like, oh yeah, slavery like is bad, but these are good slave owners because they're the hero of the story. I just don't. No, thank you. Like Shield Hero is a big one. I know a lot of people love that series, and I'm like, I don't want to read a hero who like actively has someone enslaved, but then people are like, no, it's a good slavery. I'm like, it's not a good. No slavery is a good slavery. So you know. And
so for me, it's one of those series where it was super hyped up, like season one, and I hadn't read the manga, and I like pushed it back a couple years. I think I watched season one right before season two was about to air, and I watched it, and I at the first like handful of episodes, like I cannot fucking stand Aaron, at all. I thought he was such a whiny crybaby the entire time. But then it's like it's one of the rare series where like the supporting cast I really love. Like I really love those characters, and the characters that are like a lot of
done so dirty. Like the supporting cast has been done so dirty.
Exactly. Even the ones that like I like get attached to, and then I'm like, oh, they're dead. I'm like, fuck.
Well, it's not even the death of the current Mikasa, and I never really liked Mikasa, but like current Mikasa and current Armin. Oh, I feel bad for them.
Like, I hate that she just so blindly loves Aaron, like to the point where it's just like.
Well, I dislike that she's the one, you know, Asian pure, and she's also the strongest.
That's right. Yeah, I didn't even put that two together. You're right.
Maybe pure Asian strongest.
Levi, though?
Well, if we're going into spoilers, I mean, he's number one. He's number one strongest. She's number two strongest.
Levi
what does it say?
I absolutely adore Levi.
What does it say that the two characters who are related and who are like overtly Asian are the strongest in that series?
That the Asians are kick ass and they could probably whoop my ass.
Yeah,
I know what you're getting at, but for me, I don't know. I try to. I'm not very. I don't know. I don't want to word this to make me sound ignorant or stupid. I'm very liberal with my politics. I'm very much. Yeah. But I like, for instance, you know, Lucas in the chat said he's leaving for basic training on the 28th. You know, thank you, by the way, Lucas, for your service. I do think military. I think blind patriotism is bad, but I don't think there's any problem with having love for where you're coming from.
Oh no, I don't disagree.
Right, you're right, the two Japanese characters are the strong.
I don't have really an issue with people in the military family. Like I have family who was in the military. I have friends who are in the military, and it's like it's an incredible line of work, and I couldn't do it. I have great respect for them, but personally, knowing Japan's military history, recent military history over the last 100 years, like I don't know how much you guys, because like I grew up in Australia, so like our education of World War II was very focused on Japan, and I mean we learned about the Nazis and all of that, but like Japan went in Korea, China, Singapore, all they were not like an innocent bystander who just happened to get bombed at the end of the war. Like the Kokoda Trail is like one of the huge losses of life for Australian military men during war. So it's like we're very aware of it, and I think like the older generation is also kind of like just very aware of like, oh, Japan. Like Japan was in the north of Australia, like the very, very north of Australia. They invaded. So it's like I think because America's involvement with Japan was obviously Pearl Harbor and then later the Hiroshima and Nagasaki. but a lot of their focus was on Germany and Hitler and all of that. So whereas Australia, we were kind of, the British are like, we're just going to send Australians because they're the meat shields. We don't want to send Brits there. You guys go help. You guys go help the poor Chinese who are being slaughtered. And we're like, oh, no.
This is the same issue that a lot of game fans have with Dragon Quest, is that the guy who writes the music, and he has some kind of like actual rights to the game, where they can't like just fire him. He's very much pro Japanese history, like very much, and it sucks because those games are incredible. The scores are incredible. He's an incredible, talented man. He just has a very negative thought process, I guess. I want to highlight this comment too, also by Bobby Joe. Mikasa is clearly mentally ill. Do you think? I don't see that she's mentally ill.
I think she's got
dependent. Like Stockholm syndrome.
She's dependent on Eren because for a long time he was her support system, and so like I can understand Mikasa's mentality. I don't think it's a healthy one, but I think that there's a lot of issues with the other big thing I don't like in Attack on Titan. So I think it's just not written very well, like just structurally, because you'll get let me explain, because you will get to something and then all of a sudden there'll be a flashback that's never been like foreshadowed or anything in order to foreshadow something that's important for the next chapter. Like if Isayama had an idea of like what he was actually doing, he might have put some of that flashback stuff in the original, like earlier, so that it's like, oh yes, I as a reader can remember that. There's been a lot of times where I'm like, why are we flashbacking to 10 years ago or like 5 years ago when they were all in training? Why couldn't you just show it when they were all in training and then flashback and then be like, oh yes, I remember that, because this series knows how to foreshadow. The series does not know how to foreshadow, and as it's a really weak way to kind of like get you invested in something or make something important for the next chapter without having put in the original hard work, because he hadn't planned for it, 5 years ago when he was writing at that point. So
it's one of my favorite ongoing series right now. You're breaking my heart, because I can see where you're coming from, and I don't necessarily disagree with you. But for me, I fucking love that franchise. I don't know what it is. I've even read the spinoffs, even though that they're terrible. Like Before the Fall is fucking awful. I still read it. The Lost Girls was okay. No Regrets is good. But I think what really carried that series was the anime. I think Wit is just an incredible, talented group of people, and that villain saga are just beautifully animated.
Well, I think.
I was going to I think explained that Mikasa's original clan was sort of subservient to the Jaeger clan, which adds a bit of to it.
I don't remember that in particular, but I wouldn't put it past the creator. I wouldn't put it past the series. I think any anime adaptation can really elevate a series. Even if it's a good manga, a good anime adaptation can just make it better, because like for me, I enjoy a lot of genres. I enjoy a lot of shows, as most people know, a lot of series, but a lot of the time, and especially back when I had more time to watch anime, I would get into a series via the anime first rather than the manga. And that's because I really I follow a lot of Japanese seiyuu. I like a lot of, actors in the Japanese side. I follow a lot of the studios. I mean, Mappa, who did Yuri on Ice, who did Terran Resonance, who did a whole bunch of stuff. I love their work. I think they're fantastic. Bones is great, especially when it comes to action series. There's just some really... Pardon? Madhouse, yeah. Yeah, Madhouse. Even Dean, who for years and years and years has just been like the butt of every joke because they have terrible animation. They made descending stories, or Sho Genroku Rakugo Shinju, and that is one of the most beautiful, most artistically perfect series I've ever seen. Just full stop. It's like the framing, there's the how it's set up, the narrative devices, just everything about it. The manga is phenomenal. The anime makes it special, and it's just the performances, the music. Chihayafuru, again, like a lot of the sports series I follow, I started via the anime because action series, like sports, has a lot of action, hopefully. So if you can animate it to where it's engaging, so things like Haikyuu, Chihayafuru, and you like the music, and it draws you in, and then you are more invested when you get to the manga, and you can figure out the pacing of it. You can already know these characters, so you understand their idiosyncrasies. So yeah, I think a solid adaptation. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed the first season of Attack on Titan. It was great for what it is. And I think that it definitely made that series, especially considering that the art style is not a style. It's a lack of skill. I'm sorry. There's no way you can.
It does get better, but not much better. You know.
And it's very telling that Isayama has done like 0 actual art class, like classical art classes, because you'll see characters who are sitting on a table who are at various different like levels, and the perspective is meant to change them. All of their heads are the exact same sizes. All of them, they just look like really weird.
Someone on my Twitter feed was posting screenshots of Attack on Titan manga and being like, Isayama, like, and they were like being serious. They're like, Isayama is my favorite mangaka. Look at how beautiful his art was. And they were showing panels from the first volume, and I was just like, have you read much manga? But for me, Aaron and the main character from Gantz both start off in the same headspace for me. I cannot stand them at all, but as the series progresses, I really start to like them. And eventually, but Aaron's evil now. Like, Aaron's just like completely, which I like. I like that he's just fucking.
But what does it say that the evil character is like, how about eugenics isn't good?
I mean, look at Sweden. They're doing great, and eugenics worked for them. Maybe we should try. I'm just kidding.
Right, mate.
I'm just totally kidding. I'm totally kidding. Mark said, I'm really joking, by the way. Anyone don't do that. I think saying a good anime can make it better is flawed, not in concept, but in the end results, because any adaptation could theoretically heighten it or could be worse. For me, I could not stand the Demon Slayer manga, like at all. I thought it was boring. I thought the pacing was awful, but the anime made it, I guess, digestible for me. Like, I was able to like consume that story. What's a series for you that you've either hated the manga, liked the anime, or vice versa?
Hated the manga. Oh, well, I haven't finished the manga because I refuse to, but like Bunny Drop is a big one.
Nope.
I adore the anime. I think it's adorable. I think it's wonderful, but the manga is just a no-go for me. Otherwise, like, it's not saying that like all anime adaptations are going to make a series better, because we know that's not true. Like the most recent Berserk anime adaptation, not that I watched it, but I know people hate that, and it was not done well.
As a Berserk diehard, that made me so mad. Like, I was triggered every week I watched that. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, you would think a series as beloved as Berserk would get some kind of proper treatment in modern times, but I
feel like the biggest issue with that, and like I totally agree. I do think that, although it's not really my favorite series or anything, I think that all manga adaptations, for the most part, deserve a proper adaptation, the budget to go towards that, whatever. But I feel like the problem with Berserk in particular is that no matter how good it is, I think there will always be people unhappy with it. I think there will always be people who will compare it to the 1995 show, and the fact that it's not identical to the 1995 show, it's bad. or it's not identical to the manga, it's bad. And it's like with Clamp stuff, it's very hard to adapt like such a highly detailed art style to animation, because Clamp shows look terrible. Like the Clamp character designs and set outs do not work because they're so intricate and highly detailed, and everyone has like a really long noodly body. And when that's animated, it looks weird. It looks weird.
How is X animated? Because I don't know if you're a friend with him, but Bizarre is a diehard Clamp fan.
Yeah,
and he keeps telling me to watch X. And
yeah, he's getting me to watch it as well because I own the DVDs. I got them from like a bundle of stuff that I bought for something else, and he's like, "You should watch it," and I'm like, "Okay, I'll get around to it." I haven't watched it yet. I feel like out of all of the Clamps, because I'm not a Clamp fan really. Like I appreciate them and I respect them, but I don't really get into their works. There's just too much. There's too complicated. There's
a lot.
It's sort of like the Fate stuff. There's just like everything's interacting with each other. I'm just like,
I have no idea what Fate is. I don't know where to start. Like people come to me and they go, Gundam is kind of confusing. I'm like, not really, dude. Have you seen Fate or Bakemonogatari? Like there's so many Gatari series that I just have no idea where to start. Like it's just
the thing, because I'm not up to date with Monogatari, but like I do, at least I saw like the same characters in the same timeline, just at like different points in their life. Clamp is like, oh yes, so we have card character Sakura, and then we're going to take those characters and put them in Tsubasa, but it's like an alternate world, and all of the side characters are from like our other series, and then we're going to do that like 400 times for every single different one of our series. And and X, I think, is probably doesn't fall into that trap because it's an older series before a lot of their like weird crossover stuff was happening. There's still stuff from like, because X is a sequel to a series called Tokyo Babylon, I believe.
Is it really?
I think so. I don't think you need to read or watch Tokyo Babylon to understand. Like I don't know. But it's also like it's a action show, but it's also an unfinished series because it will never be finished because characters have earthquake powers, and Japan. Let's not talk about earthquake powers in Japan because there's.
My favorite Clamps thing is Rig Veda. I actually really like. I actually really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
But that's based off of Hindu mythology, right?
Like the Sanskrit and yeah.
And I didn't know. Is this true? Did they design the characters for Code Geass?
Yeah, they did. That's why they're so noodly. That's why they're so noodly.
I love Code Geass. I never put those two together. I was like, holy shit.
That's why they're so noodly and look like characters from a boy band with their hair.
I love Speaking of boy bands, are you a K-pop stan?
Not particularly. My sister is. I mean, she's not super duper into it, but she's still into it. Like she listens to BTS, obviously, like everybody does. But 17 and like just a bunch of them. I don't even remember. When I was in high school, I had a Korean friend. And so I knew a lot of K-pop from her recommendations, but it was stuff that's like old now. It's like SHINee and Big Bang and Girls' Generation.
I love Girls' Generation. So Gigi, yeah. So wait, is that where your name's from?
No.
Oh, I was like, whoa. I got into K-pop because I was really into StarCraft, and I would, I'd get off work and the GSL would be on, and the only way to watch it would be through the GOM TV player. And in between matches, they played K-pop videos. So I fell in love with K-pop, and then I got out of it because it's kind of weird how people stan K-pop. Yeah. And then now it's like
intense. It's a little intense to like.
It's a little too intense. It's too much for me. We were at Barnes and Noble, and which is a bookstore. And they have, manga. And I was in the manga section. And then, like, there's, like, the nerdy section. They have the manga. Yeah. They have, like, some Gunpla figures. They had an entire section. A section for BTS.
Yeah. I mean,
books
BTS,
about them.
Yeah.
Just, like, dolls. They have dolls. Like, marionette dolls. I was like...
They have pop vinyls, like the pops of the BTS members. They've got everything. BTS is Korea's like #1 export currently. Like they're huge.
That blows my mind.
It's incredible because you compare it to like, because before K-pop like took off, a lot of people were into J-pop, but the Japanese companies, they're so much stricter on like spreading their talent around and like allowing foreigners to watch their music video. Like there's just they don't understand that a lot of their bands could be global phenomena, where now, and in Korea kind of, I guess, realize like, oh shit, we have a pretty valuable export. Teenage girls, they have money and they spend it. And
so, Shay was on yesterday, I think. Mm-hmm. And I guess BT, I didn't know this, but she's a huge BTS fan.
Yeah, I've heard her mention it.
And she was talking about how they put out like 4 or 5 different versions of the same album.
Yeah, and people will buy multiple copies of the same album to get the like photo card within of their favorite boy. And so my sister, because she's not into like all of that shit.
J-Hope is my favorite boy.
I think hers is maybe Jungkook, might be Suga. I can't remember. It doesn't matter. I mean, it probably matters to her, but I don't care. But she can buy K-pop CDs because people have bought them. Like they bought 10 copies to just get all the boys or to get that particular boy or whatever. And now they have 9 copies of the same CD that they don't need. So she can get like a bunch of stuff for $10 or $5 or whatever.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's good if you're not, super duper into the fan. As I said, like if you're not standing someone or a band particularly hard.
This kind of reminds me of the Twilight fandom here in the States. Like very similar. And then also, what's that BDSM spinoff thing that was huge here?
50 Shades of Grey?
Yeah, 50 Shades of Grey. Like people like grown like mothers and wives were reading that. Like they bring them in the restaurant and I'd be like, you do not seem like the type of woman, like very Sunday church going women were reading 50 Shades of Grey. I'm like, but that whole any
fandom has like the super, like the very adamant fans, the fanatic. I mean, that's what fan is short for, the fanatic. I read the Twilight books, but I was never like super into it. And by the time the movies came around, I was just like, I don't care about any of this shit.
I saw one Twilight movie. This is kind of embarrassing. I was by myself, super depressed. I just went to a Twilight showing by myself and watched. It was like the 3rd or 4th movie, so I was really confused the whole time. But I can't say I didn't not enjoy myself. I thought it was.
Yeah.
I was like, it was.
The thing about like Twilight and in extension 50 Shades of Grey is that it's just like it's people. I mean, most people like our age and even like in your early 20s, that it's just kind of fun entertainment, wish fulfillment. It's not really meant to be like a piece of art. It's not, people aren't saying like, yes, this is the next
just like
whatever.
The piece of art, It's the greatest love story ever told.
Yeah, apparently. But like I find that like Twilight, I feel like now fans are kind of reclaiming Twilight and saying like, yeah, it's okay to enjoy Twilight. It's not brilliant, but it's not terrible. Like it's not the worst thing ever. Because I mean, it's bad, but like, do you know how much bullshit we have to like girls have put up with? Because guys are like, yes, let's just exploit the thing. Like, Fast and the Furious is not brilliant film.
Well, excuse me, G. First off, I am a fucking huge Fast and the Furious fan.
Exactly. Like, but that's perfectly fine. And then so and so who's in love with Twilight, they might find that cars exploding for 8 movies.
When The Rock said Daddy's got to go to work and flexed out of the cast, I was like, whoa.
But it's the same exact power fantasy. It's the same exact thing. Like, fuck yeah, we're seeing guys blow up shit and drive cool cars. Like, it's the same idea where it's like, oh my god, we're soulmates. We're meant for each other. And he's kind of dangerous. And I'm just a normal girl. How could he choose me? Like, it's that same. It's obviously like they're very different things, but it's the same. It's satisfying the same thing.
I know. I just like to make fun of my wife. Like one of the she likes Nicholas Sparks books, which I'm a huge Nicholas Sparks fan.
Mm-hmm.
She's a big Twilight fan, and I would make fun of her, but then she also like literally what you said, makes fun of me for liking Fast and Furious. I think it's incredible though that they were able to build a franchise and just ass pull continuity out of because like the way you should watch the films, the way that they set up Tokyo Drift tied into the franchise is actually really impressive, and where they have gone with the series is just not people stealing DVDs anymore. They're stealing big vaults. And honestly, hearing Vin Diesel say one last ride just gets me going. Like I need to, like when I go to the gym, I just have that on repeat. I'm just Vin Diesel's in my ear, just super pumped. I love Fast and the Furious. But last movie, when I was 17, one of them came out, and I did get a ticket because I was going too fast. And I was very furious at that speeding ticket. I was going 90 miles an hour. It was not good.
Well,
boys are stupid.
It depends on what the speed limit was, because it's like, okay, if you're going 90 and 80, that's fine. If you're going 90,
I think it was a 65.
Yeah. I have to kind of like do the calculation because we have kilometers, not miles per hour here. So.
We use here in the States, we use freedom units. So I don't know if you're particular.
The bullshit that doesn't like work with anything else.
I don't know why we're so far up our own asses that we just don't learn what the rest of the world uses. It just
because everything we do is like by tens, like our temperature, money you do by tens, but like all of the measurements, weight measurements, liquid, all of that, all speed, everything is in 10. Like it fits within each other.
Do you guys have 1 cent over there?
I mean, technically, but no, we don't have pennies. We
so
have
we,
a 5.
We still have pennies. We have penny, 5, 10, 25, and 50 cent if you want to be a baller. But
oh fuck yeah!
Well, it's a really big coin. It's huge. It's massive.
We have 5 cent, 10 cent, 20 cent, 50 cent, $1, $2 coins.
Oh, you guys have dollar coins too?
Yeah.
Oh wow, we don't have that.
And the dollar and the $2 are gold coins. The smaller are silver coins, and then our bills are 5, 10, 20, 50, 100.
My friends from Canada brought over their $100 bill, and it really smells like maple syrup. For real. What
are they doing with it?
I thought it was a meme because they were like, "Hey, smell this. It smells like maple syrup," and I was like, I'm not smelling your money. That's weird." And they were like, "No, for real, try it." I smelled it. I was like, "Holy shit! It smells like maple syrup."
I haven't been to Canada in a very long time. Is it kind of like your money where it's a fabric-y kind of paper, or is it?
Yeah, ours. Well, it's like they've evolved the money. Like like it's like getting. I don't know. It feels different than it used to. It's very. I don't know. Crisper.
It's just gonna stay the same.
Yeah, the bills.
The ever moving sands time.
Those goddamn millennials, they even ruined the way the money feels, you know? So what is yours made out of? Is it plastic?
Yeah, plastic. So it's give me 1 second. I can actually show you.
Okay. Guys, this is the money podcast featuring G and Flip. We're gonna be talking about cash the whole time. I like how there's just a Canadian in the comments. There's someone from Canada in the comments. They said their money's waterproof.
Yeah, ours is waterproof. This is the newest $50 bill. So we've got, it's been like updated, but you can see there's like a clear line here. We've got a little thing here as well. But yeah, it's like very plasticky.
That looks so cool.
You can crush it up. And
can you rip it?
You don't. They sometimes do rip, but you don't want to rip it. But you can just tape it if you do. So, but yeah, that's.
What's it smell like?
I mean, plastic.
Like kangaroos or something?
I mean, no, kangaroos stink. You don't want to smell like kangaroos.
Okay, so this is true. We went to the zoo. My wife is pregnant. She's like, let's go to the zoo. And there's a bunch of little kids at the kangaroo exhibit. And I was like, what is going on? It was just a bunch of like 12-year-olds watching these kangaroos just go at it. It was just like getting down. And I sat there and watched it too. My wife's like, can we go somewhere else? And I was like, this is actually really entertaining. But yeah, they did smell like shit. They were.
Yeah, no, I mean, they're animals. They're just wild. They smell.
We're gonna find out Flip's in jail in the future because he's randomly screaming at people to smell money. Dude, American money smells bad. It smells like whatever the person smells like, and most people I think smell like shit. So
usually yours is like a linen-y
it's
paper
weird.
thing. Like that would absorb smell. That's the thing. Like this doesn't absorb smell. It's just you could wash it and it'd be fine.
Yeah, if you wash money here, it would like get ruined. It would be, it'd be bad.
See, therefore, US dollar, shit. No, get rid of it.
It's true, man. We are
Australian dollar, good. Although the exchange rate is terrible. Oh God.
Is it really?
That's the biggest thing about. I think for me is been because a lot of people like you guys, you buy a lot of manga because you not only have sales, so it's like buy one or buy two get one free. But we don't have any of that shit. First of all, but also your money, like in the secondhand market, your just money is higher value than my money. So if I'm buying new stuff, not that because I buy from Amazon, but like the Amazon Australia, but it's almost always fulfilled by Amazon US and then all this other stuff. But I think it's 72 cents to the dollar. So yeah, and so the only time in my lifetime that the Australian dollar has been higher than the US dollar is after the GFC, because obviously, your economy crashed. Ours didn't, not nearly as hard. So
ours tends to like do that for a while. Mm-hmm. We actually my family bought a piece of land, and the plan was to build a brand new restaurant, and we were going to live above it. And then the economy crashed, and we were like, fuck that idea. That's pizza sales still were up though, because people are depressed. And they still need to eat.
You gotta eat. I mean, it's that comfort eating. If I'm depressed, I want a pizza. so,
what is the pizza like over there? Because Zach from Uchu Shelf was showing me some of the pizza in the UK, and it is fucking horrendous. Like hot dog pizza.
That's because Brits have no fucking clue what taste is.
That's harsh.
Like, I'm sorry, guys, but their curry as well. Like, you have enough Indians. Why is your curry bad? It's because you're having to be like, for all the white people who are like, pepper is too hot for my tongue.
Man, I love this. This is wonderful.
Whereas here, like, especially in my city, we have a lot of Italians. So, like, we have good pizza, pasta, everything. So we have Australia has a very high Italian population, Greek population, British obviously because we're a colony, but the convicts, the British convicts have like exercised themselves away from, like, Australia is its own culture now. We don't really regard ourselves as like Britain and part of the Commonwealth and all of this other shit. At least I don't. Like I none of me and my family and friends do. But we have plenty of Italians, because up until the 50s, there was a very terrible thing called the White Australia policy, where only white people could legally, come to Australia. So prior to that, there's always been like Asians here and that, but it wasn't until after the 50s and also like indigenous rights movements that we've gotten a lot more, I guess, multicultural. Well, I mean, there's still very predominantly Caucasian, and I guess like the Greeks and Italians kind of fit into that as well. But now, like where I live, because our city is closer to Singapore than it is to Sydney. So we have like a lot of Asians here. So a lot of my friends are Asian.
Wow.
I went to school with plenty of Asians. And we have people from, all over. But a lot, like we don't have the Hispanic community that like a lot of places in the US do. Just because
we have a lot.
Because we're so far away from South America. So and Central America, so like the people don't move to, like people in Peru or wherever don't move to Australia. They move to the US or they move to closer.
How are the how are the WAPs over there? Are they nice?
The WAPs, is that
so
what you said?
WAPs is a racist term for Italian.
Yeah, no, we call them wogs with a G.
Why?
I don't know. That's just
because
what they're called.
WAPs is without papers, because a lot of them came to Ellis Island. They were like, we don't got nothing. So so are they cool? Are they nice?
Yeah, I mean, my best friend, the one who got me into anime, she's Italian.
Yeah.
Her and her husband's Indian. Their wedding, oh my god, there was 400 people there.
I can only imagine. I can only imagine.
Oh my god. But yeah, like they're very lovely. I mean, like with any person, there's good and bad people, but generally, like
not with Italians, we're all perfect. All of them.
Oh, fabulous! I mean,
actually, so my family's from Sicily. There's a huge racism for Northern Italians for people down south, because we're technically an island, and there's a lot of there's a lot of African people on the island. There's a lot of Turkish people, a lot of Muslims there. So there's a lot of hate. Like I remember not too long ago, I went to an Italian restaurant that just opened. I'd like to support local places, and I was talking to the owner, and he's from Naples. Like barely spoke English. So I'm talking to him, and he asked where my family's from. I told him, and the complete attitude changed towards me. And I was like, "Are you fucking kidding me, dude?" Dude? And then when he goes then I flexed on him a little bit. He goes, "What's your restaurant called?" And I told him. He goes, "Never heard of it." And I was like, "It's been open for over 50 years, my friend." So, yeah, okay.
Hey. It's the craziness. There's a little bit of community craziness there.
Dude, America is. I don't know how it is over there for you guys politics wise, but here it is like the most toxic it's ever been. Ever. It's so bad. And like as a business owner, I don't want to step on anyone's toes, but like I've only had to kick a couple people out. One guy called Obama the N-word, which was very jarring because he's been coming in for years. I thought he was a normal dude. And then when he did that, I was like, whoa.
Yeah, yikes.
You can't do that, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Can't do that. Even though I'm alleged, like a while ago, Zach said he wanted me to address the allegations of the N-word. It's have you seen this? Have you seen this meme? All of them. Alex, Zach from Ushu Shelf, Sam Manga Hunter, they just started making fun of me, saying I like to say the N-word a lot in private, but I don't, and it's getting a little too much because I'm afraid one day someone's gonna go
take it seriously
and then be like, "Flips canceled."
Yeah, so. The thing, because for me, like I said, my mother's from California, but her mother is from Georgia, and so she grew up in kind of very, very small, bigoted town, but she never had an issue with African Americans. She was always friends with them. She was always very lovely to them. My grandmother is a good person in a lot of ways. She's of her time in other ways, but she's never had an issue with race. When I was born, my parents were living in North Carolina, so obviously in the South, and they were living in small town North Carolina. And I mean, not to make a point of it, but the reason we left North Carolina is because the people there actively tried to kill us 3 times because we were not from around there, and we
like you specifically.
Yeah, me and my parents. I was an infant, literally like 1 year old, because my parents they had a fashion, they had their fashion company, and they had their factory where like all their clothes were being made, and they hired only African American people because those were the people who needed jobs, right? So they were the ones who 100% African American women, especially employment. And oh man, did the white people not appreciate that? So yeah. So needless to say, we left after one instance. My dad's office was shot up whilst he was thankfully out at lunch.
Fuck.
The second instance was when my family came, including me, came home from a long day at the factory. My dad opened the door to go in. Our cat ran in and then immediately ran out. And my dad's like, that's weird. Like, something's going on. So he called the police. Police came and said, you're very lucky that you called us, because usually in this situation, we're bringing out the body bags. Because what had happened was somebody broke in, poured gasoline over everything, messed with the electricals. So if dad had turned on the light, the whole thing would have gone up. So those are the people
you guys are so lucky.
Yeah, and this isn't 1950s this was 1994. Like this.
Could you imagine how good the world was if like racists like channeled that energy and effort into like
something good
good things,
something not hateful? Yeah, it would be incredible. But unfortunately, bigots they're perpetually created by the community they're surrounded by. And I think that for a lot of people in these small communities, they don't have a lot of perspective on the wider world. And so they just continue to create that. And it's really, really, really sad.
We, my family, when they came here, because in 1969, Italians in America, especially in like small town Midwest, wasn't a thing. So they were met with extreme racism as well. Like, the restaurant being broken into, my mom would go to school, with like, go back to where you came from. My aunt and uncle were born in Sicily, so they didn't speak English the first couple of years. Got made fun of. Like, they didn't understand Halloween as a holiday. So kids would put like paper bags over their heads because they didn't have a costume, and write like, disgusting things on the bag. But it's so weird because now it feels like Italian culture is just so ingrained with American culture in general. Because I think it's because, honestly, I think if a race wants to get ahead, they need to Americanize their food. Because real Italian food doesn't have almost zero, like food in Sicily, zero red sauce. If you go there, it's no red sauce, all sardines.
The cheese as well. Like there's so
like
very
real cheese. The real Sicilian cheese smells like ass. It tastes almost like an untrained tongue would taste disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
But so we had to, my grandparents had to come here and Americanize their food. And I feel like with any culture, I think the key to America's heart is to their big fat guts. I think you need to make them happy and love your food. It's just
I totally agree.
That's fucking crazy that they did that to you goddamn Australians. Go back to where you came from.
Well, no, Mom was one of those fucking California hippies, apparently. Dad, not from around these parts. The family in general, we hadn't lived there 300 years. My parents didn't go to church. They didn't go to the right church.
And you guys weren't married to your cousins or anything. You guys were just.
Also, we didn't participate in Wednesday night wife swapping. That's a big community.
Oh, that's a big thing here too. That's a big thing.
You can't just not participate in wife swapping.
I mean, there's nothing that brings me more joy than Ted fucking my wife. Like, I just really I love participating.
And I think not hating black people was just kind of the final nail in the coffin. Actually treating them like people and respecting them and appreciating them and giving them full-time work was just just a little bit too much. I think the Baptist thing was like probably a big thing because my dad, like my family, my dad's side is Catholic.
Me too.
My mom, she's just like generic Christian. She's not like particularly anything. And it's quite funny because when they were getting married, my mom asked my uncle, who is actually a Catholic priest, like, should I convert for the children and to like, you know, make it all good in God and for God or whatever? And he's like, if your relationship with God hasn't changed, don't worry about it. You're a good person.
That's a real priest right there. That is.
He was a phenomenal man. I mean, he's still alive, but he's in his 80s and he's one of the best people, full stop. He could be a saint. Seriously. He is the oldest of my dad's brothers because my dad, youngest of 8 kids, 4 boys, 4 girls. Catholic families. That's what you did.
That's true.
And so back then you gave your first son to God and you gave your last son to God. So my grandfather was like kind of trying to push my dad into the church as well. And he's like, no. One of my other uncles was also studying to be a priest. And then he got like tired of it because the Jesuits, which is where my uncle is, they study for 7 years before they can like become a priest. But he's incredible. He's the only one of my dad's siblings who went to university as like a young person. He got a full scholarship, went to university in Victoria. And he was the youngest ordained priest in Australia. I think he was 21, something like that. And I think he still is. Yeah. And he was a missionary in Africa for quite a while. And then now he's at a basilica here and has been forever, but he works with the hospitals. He performs like last rites and stuff, but he's done.
That's gotta be rough.
Yeah, it's a full, like, it's really, he is a saint. Like the amount of stuff that he's had to go through in his life, I don't know how anyone could do it. But he's also like, he married every single one of my dad's siblings, every family, like all of my cousins have been married by him.
That's
awesome. So yeah, it's really, really cool.
So
I don't know.
What about you? Are you yourself religious or?
Not particularly. I went to high school, like all of my schooling was Catholic education. And I think that you have to keep in mind that here, private school is quite normal. Like more people go to private school than I'd say public school. So I always went to Catholic schools. But my dad, after a lifetime of living in a very Catholic household, his dad, like my grandpa, went to church every single day, 6 a.m. He did good works. He'd sponsor a lot of kids to come to Australia for university from Singapore and from the Philippines and things. Back when Asians weren't in this city where I live. So like my grandpa, I never met him because he died before I was born. But he was very, very devout in his religion. And my dad sort of grew into that. And then when he just kind of knew that he didn't really want to be someone who goes to church on a regular basis. Like I wouldn't say he's an atheist. I wouldn't say that he hates religion or anything like that. But he, and sort of in extension, the way I've been brought up is that you can be a good person without having to dedicate, having to go to mass and if you make good choices in your life and you have a good working relationship with prayer or whoever you believe is like a higher power, then that's what is important for you. I think religion, especially back then, it had a very different role in people's life. It was a huge part of community. Like people, That's where people met and hung out. Nowadays, that's not the case, and I would say that
Tinder and Grindr. We don't need church.
No. My needs for something else.
Oh, gee, holy shit!
I'm praying every day. No, God. But like my mother, as I said, she didn't grow up in a super strictly religious environment. Her mother is like, she's religious, she goes to church, but they never went to church when she was younger. And so I would say honestly, my mom is probably like the most spiritual out of all of my.
She's the California hippie, you know.
I mean,
so
what are they?
So for me, I was born in a Catholic family. My grandmother, Roman Catholic, like.
Yeah.
Like we did. My grandfather just passed, and during we had the private funeral, and it was like they did the whole rosary, and that took like an hour. I was just like, I mean, as much as I love you, Nono, taking up too much of my time, man. Just like you're gone. Can we just? I'm just kidding.
Times. Why does he need the whole rosary?
But my wife is religious. I would say she's more so than me. But she's not like, I feel like especially in America, if you use the word religious, you're automatically
there's a stereotype to like a fundamental type of,
like you're automatically assumed that you are conservative. You automatically are assume that you hate gay people, that you're a bigot. But I've noticed here, especially, I feel like our generation, the generation below us, are the most like loving, welcoming generations in a very long time. Like they're so nice, and that's what gives me hope. But my wife is 5 years younger than me, so she's very loving and welcoming of everyone, and which is good because I wouldn't have married her if she was like, if she secretly was like, I hate gays. But so she reads the Bible, and she takes her daughter to church, because I try to go, but honestly I don't get anything out of it, and I get off work at 3 a.m. I'm not waking up at 7 for nobody. If like I get the choice of going to church or sleeping in,
hey, I mean, God wants us to rest. It's a day of rest.
Exactly.
Might as well get your Z's in.
And every time like my favorite priest, Father Joe, he baptized my dad. He remarried my parents. My parents eloped too, and my grandparents wouldn't acknowledge their marriage. That's how hardcore they were until they got married in the eyes of God. So at their 10-year wedding anniversary, they got remarried, and Father Joe was there. Father Joe baptized my daughter. He's an incredible man. He makes church fun, because Catholic church can be fucking boring.
Full on. Yeah.
Boring.
It's just like, oh my God, okay.
But Father Joe like tells jokes, and he like cracks up, and he's so loving too. But every time I see him, he comes to the restaurant. He goes, hey, when you come into church? And I'm like, when you start doing mass at 1 a.m., like I'll be there, dude. I'll be front and square. So Alonzi,
hey man, the only time we go is if Christmas mass. Sometimes we go at the 7 p.m. or midnight mass, depending on which one my uncle is, at. And then maybe Easter, but generally it's like weddings, funerals. That's about it. And I think the other thing is that like my uncle, because as I said, all of the weddings in my family have been done by him, and he's so knowledgeable. Like, he is so smart. He has spent his lifetime amassing a huge collection of history books, of classics. No. And honestly, over the last 10 years, he's been giving them to me and my sister, because he knows that if he dies, the church will just sell it and get rid of it. And these are all beautiful, hardbound, amazing collections of history. And I'm a big history nerd, so like it's right up my alley.
I could tell, because earlier, you were throwing some shit out there, and I was like, oh shit, like she's so. Go on, sorry.
But so he's just so like, he's so much smarter than like anyone I know, and it's incredible because he's in his 80s, as I said, and he knows more about like technology and like my dad can't do shit on his phone. He's like, you're lucky if he can text you in okay. My uncle's like doing face. He does everything. Like we gave him an iPod, like one of the original iPods, on his 80th birthday, and it was like the best thing for him. He loved it. It's just really, really interesting to see the difference there, because he's, as I said, he's my dad's older brother, and he's the oldest son. He's 17 years difference to my dad. So my dad is, oh God, what is this? 2020. Last year's 2019. So he's 68. And my dad's oldest sibling is his sister, Mary, who's 18 years different. So it's like 18, 17, 16, 15, 12.
Your grandmother and your grandfather. Oh my God. They waited that long in between?
Well, I mean, good Catholics, you got to repopulate the earth. It's just happened. We got to repopulate the earth, everyone.
It seems like Catholics should invade Japan if they're having a problem with their youth. They need to.
Apparently, no, because I think my dad. I'm not going to say my dad was like unexpected, but he's probably the one with the most time, because his closest sister is 4 years older than him, so he's like really the baby of the family, and it's just. Yeah, I mean, so my dad was really raised by his older siblings more so than his parents, because his dad was always working. Like if he wasn't at church, he was president of the St. Vincent de Paul Society, which is like a charity. He opened the first chartered accounting school here in the state and kind of in Australia. He was the third chartered accountant in Australia ever, full stop, which is kind of incredible. Plus his actual job was he was a fruit exporter, so he'd send fruit to Asia. So he was just like gone 23 hours of the day. And my grandmother, right? My grandpa, yeah. Okay. And then my grandmother, she was a functional alcoholic, so she wasn't like super. She was a good. She'd make dinner. But the kids would be out of the house. They didn't want to be around her. So it was very much like all of the siblings stuck together. And that's what you do when you got 8 of you and your home life isn't fabulous. And I think it, like, comparatively to because both my parents didn't come from fabulous backgrounds, because my mother her mother is kind of a perpetually single mom. She's my grandmother on my mother's side has had 5 husbands that we know of. We don't know how many. and she doesn't make very good choices in love. Let's just say that. So needless to say, my mother has this last year discovered 3 more siblings that she never knew she had, which brings the count up to 9. So my mom grew up with, she has 3 half siblings that she grew up with. And then her dad had 3 siblings at least before her, and then 3 siblings after her.
You have a lot of aunts and uncles just all over the place.
Well, yeah, I mean, and so it's kind of interesting to see, because she, like, the siblings she's closest with are the ones that she grew up with, obviously, like from her mom's side. And it's kind of interesting to see them and then her, because she's like the only one who's got a different dad and got a different personal background as well. It's, yeah, I mean, my family tree could span for absolute ever, because there's just so many bits and pieces.
And you know so much about your family's history that it's really cool.
Well, I think the joys of coming from a family where a large portion are in there, like, retired and over 60s, is that they are interested in, like, finding the family history. We've found and Facebook is like a big thing. Like, they just find us. They find us through Facebook. We have relatives, like third cousins and stuff, in Ireland, because that's where my family, like, historically is from. The Australian and the US side are Irish. So we get like, we have an Irish cousin who's like, oh hey, we're heading over to Australia. And I'm like, oh hey, like we don't. It's just,
we have family that found us on Facebook that are Chinese, and I'm just like, I don't know where that rabbit hole went. But I did the 23andMe, and I'm actually more Middle Eastern than I am Italian. I'm like a majority Middle Eastern, and I think
kind of
it kind of
area.
Yeah. It kind of I look like, when I tan, I look Muslim.
Middle Eastern.
Yeah, I'm just pale because I don't go outside.
Yeah.
So, but holy shit, it's been over 2 fucking hours.
Well, I mean, I can hold a conversation for.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a blast. It is 4 a.m. here. I said I'm gonna say we're gonna wrap it up, but just like Boogie Snacks, I can see this going another 30 minutes. Someone said, thought that you were Irish.
Yeah, I mean, historically I'm Irish, but I'm not like directly Irish. I'm Australian and American, so it's a mix of the two. I mean, but we're all white, so it's 2 different shades of vanilla. It doesn't matter.
So I have a couple questions for you.
Yep, go ahead.
What's another hobby of yours that you don't talk about on YouTube?
I mean, I read a lot, like novels, a lot more than I think people realize. I swim. That's kind of like my one sport that I do, although I'm trying to be better about that. I also cook, which is sort of kind of how I relax and do whatever. I don't have any like dedicated hobbies. Like I do enjoy doing crafty stuff from time to time. Like I like to, whenever I have a vacation, because one of my big hobbies that I do is travel. Like I try to travel as much as I can, and whenever I do that, do
it while you can. My biggest regret is not traveling before I had a kid, because now it's impossible.
That's what my parents have always said, because they waited 4 years to get married, and then they waited 4 years to have a kid. And in that 4 years, they were just traveling. They were just having fun. They're like, we're young. We would do whatever we want. And so, like, I got my first passport at 3 months old. So I've been traveling forever. My most recent trip was South Korea, which was the end of 2018.
Did you go see any K-pop live?
No.
Did you see any StarCraft?
No, we were only there a week, and it was actually pretty interesting because the week we were there was Chuseok, which is like Korean Thanksgiving, as a harvest festival, and we're staying with one of my sister's friends, her family, and we were actually like invited to go to Chuseok, which was incredible. Like it was really, really wonderful, but it also allowed us to kind of experience South Korea like a native, like Koreans do. It wasn't just like, oh yes, let's go to this tourist hotspot and let's go here. And
I think that's super key when you're traveling, is do the non-touristy stuff. Like actually learn the culture. I think I love the amount of travel. Like we used to go to Sicily every year for, like, we have a house over there. Yeah. So we used to go all the time, and doing the non-touristy stuff, just, go to people's houses and just hanging out and learning, like, it's one of the best things ever.
I mean, travel as a tourist is fine. Like you can go to a lot of cultural spots and whatever, but you always feel like a tourist. You always feel like you're just there to get a snapshot of, like, oh, the Trevi Fountain, or oh, the Eiffel Tower or whatever. But if you're staying with someone, if you're actually engaging with the people who live there, then it's so much more of an experience, and it really does impact you a lot more. One of my, aside from South Korea, I went to Costa Rica back in 2011. It was actually a volunteer trip, so I was there for 5 weeks, and 3 of those weeks were volunteering. So I was actually living with a homestay, like a family, and then what my thing was, it was community volunteering. So me and a group of other Australian students basically built a green water filter. So where we were staying was a tiny little coffee village, and so where they grew their coffee, there was a lot of water wastage. So by doing that, it allowed them to reuse their water multiple times and obviously have a lower ecological impact. And that was just, I mean, my Spanish is shit, but it was really wonderful to be able to do that. And similarly, when I went to Vietnam, it was another volunteering trip, and that was, you know, being within the and seeing sort of day-to-day life and not just, you know, living it up in a hotel or whatever, because that was more a lot of that trip was working with orphans and like other various,
you know, my wife did the same thing. She would go to volunteer trips before we got married and would just, you know, work with, you know, people that don't have clean water, clean food, and like help out and build wells and stuff and all that shit. She's a better person than I am, because if I'm ever going to leave the country, it's going to be for 100% pleasure. I'm not like someone said, travel when the youngin is older. Yes,
it's expensive when the kid's older, because you got to pay for the kid.
Plus, you want to be a good example, you know, and we won't be able to do our wife swapping. We won't be able to go bar hopping, you know, just kidding. My wife is so, I don't want to say old school, like I guess is like, that if I even joked about that around her, she would be like upset. She'd be like, and plus she's very young too, so she's very like, you know, you don't love me. But G, where can people find you?
So I have my YouTube channel called Simply G. Just exactly like it's said on the screen there. I'm also on Twitter, and my @ is Collecting G. Again, just one word. G is spelt the same way. I'm also on, although I'm not quite active right at the moment, but I'm on EnglishLightNovels.com, and I write under G there. I write reviews for various light novels that I'm enjoying, and I think that's it. Oh, I'm on Instagram, but I'm rarely on there, so don't worry about that.
You gotta plug your podcast and where people can listen to it.
Yeah, well, that's on my channel as well. So I've got a podcast with my very good friend Ray from Whimsical Pictures, and it's called Read Right to Left, and we talk about various manga demographics, genres, and in the future we're hoping to do more specific series and mangaka focused episodes. So next month is we have one coming up, which is digital manga, which is a topic that I enjoyed a lot and I had a lot to say about. Next month is romance manga. We'll actually have 2 guests, hopefully, if everything works out. And yeah, we've got a lot planned. So if that sounds interesting, check it out.
And go check it out, guys, because I mean, I don't normally like the kind of stuff you guys talk about normally, but I still enjoy the podcast. Like, I think it's important to at least dip your toes in the stuff that's outside your wheelhouse normally. So G, and what do you have coming up video wise? Do you have any first impressions coming up, or?
I probably do. I have first impressions, most likely. Still need to film it, but I'm definitely going to be doing a first impressions on Heavenly Delusions, volume 1 of that, which was really interesting. I also have some library books that I might do a first impressions on, just because I'm just curious on that. I did recently have a first impressions on Drifting Dragons, which people may or may not be interested in watching. I also
is that good, by the way? Is that good?
Yeah, I mean, if you like
the art style is pretty cool.
The art style is beautiful. It's a kind of a subtle foodie manga, so if that's your thing, check it out. It's also kind of like obviously fantastical, and it's very found family-esque. Like, there's a lot of characters and it's a very tight-knit group. And at the end of the month, as always, I will have my manga pickups video, like the whole whatever I got for January, which isn't a huge amount currently, so which is a change from last month. So
I've been on a little bit of a buy ban, so I think the only thing I've gotten recently is Sam Manga Hunter sent me Wodokoi, Base Senpai sent me Grand Blue Dreaming, and Sate Youngman and Kaiji are like the things I've gotten. So I don't have enough to really do a haul. I don't know if you see my old hauls. I used to go crazy, buy a lot. I mean, I spent $10,000 last year.
Whoa, my God.
On manga and anime. Yeah. yeah. It was bad. It was bad, G. It was bad. I mean, luckily financially, I was able to do that and not.
Yeah. Don't put it on credit cards. Everybody, do not put purchase credit cards.
So
I don't own a credit card. Be like me. Just get a debit card. Do not spend money you don't have.
Here in America, you have to have some kind of credit. You have to. So it sucks. So I do have a credit card. Everything's paid off. My credit score is actually better than my parents. So you have to have a credit. You have to, but do not borrow the American dream. Do not borrow your wants. Live within your means. I splurged. My wife was not happy.
I can imagine.
Very upset with me.
I mean, 10 grand.
I don't know why.
10 grand, and you have a new baby. That money could have gone to a lot of things. That's
true. But I mean, we're like that. Like I spent that much, and we were never, ever worried about.
Even so. There's so much that can go wrong. Like there's so much that can happen, and like
Knock on wood.
Yeah, yes. Exactly. Like life is unexpected, and people and I'm not talking directly to you. I'm talking to like everyone.
Yeah. Do not be like me.
Saving is so important. It's such a huge thing. People always ask me like, how much are you spending a month? How much are you doing this, that, whatever else? And I spend probably more per volume compared to a lot of other manga tubers, just again, because our dollar is shit in comparison to the US dollar. But I always make sure that I have money in my savings. I always make sure I have money in my bank. And I try to work towards vacations and things to have my save. And so I have that saving fund. I have an actual saving fund, and I have my general banking. And every so often I might buy more than usual because the way that I get paid is kind of like on commission. Like if I do really well, that I get more money than if it's a really quiet time of year. So, it's very dependent, but you need to be smart. Manga and anime and hobbies and all of this it's not important. It's a want, not a need. Yep. And the great thing about, especially in the US, especially in Australia, because we share a lot of the regional licensing agreements, you can enjoy everything without having to buy it necessarily. We like the Shonen Jump app, Crunchyroll, Funimation has an app as well. Your library is a phenomenal resource. Use it.
PirateBay.com, don't support art. I know saying 10 grand is a lot. I don't want to like sound snobby or rich, but like pizza business is very lucrative, and so it's knock on wood. We're doing like I haven't been working for 15 days and not worried about anything. So
in the grand scheme of things, 10 grand for you is not a lot. For some people, it's a huge amount.
It's still a lot.
I mean, it's a lot, but like if you're making 40,000 a year, it's that's
a significant amount.
That's 25% of your income for the year. Like you got to be smart about this, and there's so many ways to be a fan and to be enjoying series and to be able to talk about series without having to spend hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars every single month just to show off in front of the camera and be like, look at all this stuff I got. Aren't I cool? Validate my purchases.
Yeah, I mean, you're spot on. I did read everything that I bought. I barely played any video games this year. That's like another hobby of mine. I did read everything, and I did end up selling a majority of it. So, but like savings wise, I have my savings. Wife has her own savings. The baby has a savings. Yeah. We have, bills and all that stuff too. So like everything's paid for. Car's paid off. You know what I mean? So, we're good. I just think that number, my wife was just like.
Well, it's regardless of whether you have or don't have that money, 10 grand is a lot of money. Like that's a lot of money. That's a vacation amount of money.
I think I went through a midlife crisis at 27. You know what I mean? Like I think I was having.
I mean, mine was at like 20, so don't worry about it.
So like that was my like I don't drink. I don't ever go out. I don't smoke. I don't do drugs. I just got addicted to buying anime and manga. And it went overboard, but I feel like I've broken that. Like I feel so happy right now with like how my collection is. Like I'm very comfortable. I'm very at peace. I mean, I have a whole shelf of just the most nerdiest stuff I could possibly think of. Shout out to Base Senpai, that's his shelf. I mean, and there's still stuff I want to get. There's still stuff I want to sell. But hobby-wise, when I get into a hobby, I go all in. Like Yu-Gi-Oh cards was just all in. Dragon Ball Super cards, all in. Gunpla, I have 7 unbuilt kits. I sold some of them. So yeah, it's a lot. But anyways, we're gonna wrap this up. I just hit a second wind, so I don't know. Zach wants to do a show, so I might do a show with Zach. I'm not sure. I need to go to bed though. It's 4:17 in the morning.
Sleep.
Yeah, I need to sleep. But I have had a monster, so at the same time, it's like, but gee, thank you so much. I didn't realize it was 2.5 hours. This was a lot of fun. So.
All right. No, thank you for inviting me. I'm sorry that it's always like really difficult with me because my time zones are just so.
Yeah, gee, how dare you? You know, how dare you? No, seriously though, thank you so much for taking the time. If the time zones ever line up like this again, we need to do another show because this was a lot of fun. We talked about everything from the shoujo manga to eugenics to the bushfires to your family almost dying by some rednecks. So it's been a wild adventure. Yeah. So
I mean, now everybody knows way too much about my personal life.
Yeah, I mean, you just spilt the beans.
No, there's a lot worse. That's not even anything.
That's part 2. That's gonna be part 2. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Check out G, and I'll see you maybe in 5 minutes with Zach. So who knows?